this is going to be a little preview for something called Patch Quest. Patch Quest is going to be releasing on May the 7th, which is this coming Friday, and it's going to be releasing into Early Access, so that makes this video a Hitchhiker's Guide to Early Access video, but technically also a preview at the same time. Now, Patch Quest is calling itself a Metroidvania Rogue-lite fusion, and I would say that's pretty accurate, but it's definitely a more casual, more lighthearted version of those things. For instance, instead of having to start completely anew every time, your previous progress is actually saved every time. Even if you only get one room farther than last time, the overall sort of Metroidvania map will still update itself and remember each adventure that you take. So this is definitely a more lighthearted take on those genres, which I believe the genre definitely has room for, because there's not very many of the more lighthearted games. Usually they're very difficult and very hardcore, so there's always room for a more friendly take like this one. This game is all about taming and mounting monsters and actually riding the monsters around the levels as a way to make yourself more powerful. You have a couple of simple tools that your character themselves will always have: a gun that can actually take fruit to change its fire mode, and a lasso that you can use to lasso the monsters. And the way that it actually works is you press a button and you will throw out the lasso, and then you have to just sort of make it collide with monsters, and then the first monster that it collides with it'll stick to, and you have to walk around the monster in a circle in order to tame them. More powerful monsters you have to circle more than one time, which means you can actually tame very literally every monster in the game, including bosses and things like that. You just have to circle them a whole bunch of extra times in order to get it done. And if you get hit at anything that makes you take damage, it will break the lasso's grip and you have to start the process over. Although there is an upgrade you can get later on that allows you to sort of shrug off one hit without breaking the lasso. You'll start off from a central location in the world with 4 different paths, each to 4 different biomes, and there are actually a lot more biomes than just those 4, but those are just the 4 closest to where you start. And you only have access to one of those at first, but as you explore the world you will unlock various shortcuts and eventually gates that allow you to actually start in those other biomes once you get to them and unlock the gateway to your main base hub first. And beyond those biomes are even more that you can go to with all sorts of other features like shrines, even dungeons that allow you to fight bosses and get like more powerful boss level monsters as a reward if you're able to get to the end and defeat them and then capture them. Various shortcuts that you can use to sort of teleport or travel across the biomes more quickly once you unlock the paths, and a couple of other things that make this game very much one of exploration. It is basically entirely based around exploration, because you're supposed to explore all these different areas to find all these dungeons and shortcuts and shrines and other things, and of course every biome also has its own hazards and monsters, and since you can ride every single monster, finding new biomes equips you with a whole bunch of new possible mounts that you could choose to tame if you wanted to. And also one kind of interesting feature of the game that's actually one of its main features is the whole patch thing. As you go through the various areas, this sort of invisible thing will charge up, and once it's charged, usually it's after a large combat encounter, it will allow you to actually take a plant as a patch. And you can just choose any plant that is in the biome that you're in. Pretty much everything can be taken. There are over 100 of them. And all you have to do once this is charged up is just walk next to anything that can be taken, and it'll show this little golden patch symbol if it's something that you don't have one of yet, or a sort of grayed out patch symbol that will show that you actually have at least one of these at your home base. You can still take it if you want to, but it just is a way to tell you which ones you have and have not collected yet. And at the end of your run, whether you die or return on purpose, you will turn in all of the patches that you found during that particular adventure, and as you turn them in, they will populate your actual home base with all those plants, and you can actually choose to move them around as much as you want to. You can create little tiles of each of the biomes. If you get a certain number of plants from each biome together in one place, it'll actually turn that section of your home base into like a miniature version of that biome. And also every new plant that you collect gives you experience, and this allows you to eventually level up. And the level ups give you the ability to choose sort of an extra gadget to take along with you. These are passive upgrades. I mentioned the thing that allows you to shrug off one hit and not break your lasso. That's one of them. And there are all sorts of different ones, from things that allow you to charge up your monster's special skills to things that slow down time momentarily when you take a hit. So why would you be collecting all these patches to populate your home base with besides just decoration? Well, once you have a creature, once you're actually riding something, you can just continue on your adventure while riding it, but you can also at any time choose to return to base with this creature as a pet. If you do that, the creature will actually stay with you. It will stay at your home base permanently. And each creature has a sort of a heart, like an affection meter, effectively, and depending on the different decorations of the different types of biomes, and the, well, whether or not you've actually pet the creature today or not, it will raise this heart meter, and that will allow you to use the creature for a longer period of time, because now that they are your pet, you can actually use a whistle to summon them up, and you can just have them with you once per adventure. If you do get dismounted from them, they don't disappear permanently. In this case, once they're a pet, they're basically a pet forever. They'll just go back to base. So this allows you to sort of keep a pen of monsters that you really like, monsters that you feel are particularly powerful or that are just fun to use, and allow you to actually sort of reach for them at any time. So you can capture wild monsters in mission, and you can also have up to 5 of these other pets waiting at home. Once you have a creature, you'll notice that they have 2 different passive abilities, different for every creature. Some of them make them immune to certain status ailments, some of them give them like a damage bonus against certain other types of creatures, and so on and so forth. You can look at your menu whenever you're on a creature, and it'll just give you a lowdown of what actually all these passives mean. And they also have the stamina meter, which is that little battery gauge up in the top right. The stamina will slowly drain out of a creature once you're riding them, and eventually, of course, when it hits 0, you have to hop off and let them go and get a new creature. They also have 3 different active abilities. They also have a level which is tied to these abilities. As you kill enemies while you're riding one, it will gain levels. They start at level 1, which will give them their mobility skill, which is usually some sort of dash or something that involves like firing projectiles around them and dashing forward or something, just something that allows them to move more quickly in some way or another. There's also some that like go stealthy, basically just like movement or avoidance skills. And as you kill enemies, you'll eventually level up to 2 and 3. And when you do that, you gain the other 2 active abilities, which are usually attacks, projectiles of some kind. They all have elements and also possible status effects that they could inflict enemies with. And one thing about these active skills is when you actually successfully hit an enemy with them, it restores a small bit of the monster's stamina. So you're encouraged to use these as often as possible. They are on cooldowns, but you're encouraged to use them as much as you can, as accurately as you can, to help gain more stamina, therefore allowing you to ride the monster for a longer period of time. You also have that aforementioned fruit gun that fires a basic blue projectile forward, and you can find various shrubs along the way that allow you to get these fruits, and you can have up to 3 of them at a time. That's what's on the sort of middle left of the screen there, and those will alter the bullet types that you use, from like shotgun berries to rapid fire grapes and jumbo melons and all sorts of stuff. That will alter your shot types in various ways, and you're encouraged to have a nice selection of them at any given time so that you don't have to run out and use the simple basic shot as little as possible, hopefully, although you can only have 1 of each fruit type. If you like already have a jumbo fruit and you want another one, it will just replace the one that you already have. You can't have 2 of the same thing, so you're encouraged to always carry a variety of them with you. One kind of neat thing about the way that the shooting in this game works, it does use a twin stick shooting kind of control scheme, but I do recommend a controller for this game, by the way. It just works better. But as you hold down the fire button for a longer period of time with one of these fruits, it will charge up this gauge underneath your character, and if you continue to do it, eventually this gauge will reach max and you'll actually stop firing, and as soon as you release the fire button, you'll unleash some sort of charge attack, and every fruit has a different charge attack. The shotgun fires 2 huge waves of like piercing shotgun blasts. The rapid fire one fires like a really rapid fire like minigun stream for a second, then the jumbo one shoots this huge like screen filling bullet that pierces through everything. It's pretty great, and this is something that you're going to be doing a lot, and it's also a very useful thing because not only does it do a lot of damage to everything in front of you, but each of these fruits also has a limited ammo capacity, and as you fire them, the ammo will deplete, of course, but this big charge shot actually doesn't take any of that ammo, so it's something that you sort of earn your way up to by firing, and allows you to do some sort of big screen finisher that doesn't take your ammo. So yeah, it's a very useful thing to use as efficiently as possible because it helps you take down some of the tougher monsters and keep your ammo stocks in a good state. And that's really the basic game loop of the game. You'll be exploring the overworld areas, trying to find these shrines. The shrines give boosts to different types of projectiles, usually based on element or status effect projectiles that your creatures can use. So different shrines will give boosts to different creatures, so you want to choose the ones that are good for you and what you have. You'll be finding these dungeons and these shortcuts, unlocking all the various paths throughout the world, and exploring each biome to get all the new patches to decorate your home base and make your creatures at home more comfortable, more happy, and of course capturing new creatures for yourself, either just to survive that particular run or for some of them to take back and have as pets. All the while leveling yourself up to get access to more gadgets, getting more and more exotic and high-level pets, capturing elite and boss enemies tends to give those particular creatures a higher maximum stamina, so you can use them for longer when you actually call them as pets. And of course, eventually pushing out farther and farther into the world by discovering all these new biomes and dungeons and bosses and things, and of course trying to amass a collection of all of the patches you can find, as well as the most powerful and exotic creatures that you can come across and bring back home with you. As far as the early access goes, the developer has mentioned that the early game is pretty much fleshed out, and the late game is actually in a relatively good state as well, so it's the mid game, the sort of bulk of the middle content that they're working on right now. It's going to launch with about 6 of the total 12, so half of the areas that you can visit, and eventually, of course, a lot of the updates are going to be adding more of those mid-game areas, and of course, really fleshing out all the various new creatures for you to capture and new biomes for you to explore. As far as criticisms or things that I would like to mention about the early access, things that could maybe be changed, I have 2. One of which is simply just because of how colorful the game is. It's very pretty, but it does mean that in more hectic fights, especially in the big sort of square arena fights, it can actually be a little bit hard to read the game sometimes, because some of the projectiles get very large, and it's not always clear exactly where your hitbox is or just where you are in general, and I feel that the readability of the game in those more hectic scenes could actually be improved a little bit by maybe giving yourself a different outline, or giving the enemy projectiles a more easy to see outline, or something that makes the combat when there is a lot of projectiles on screen a little bit more readable, just because there are so many of them sometimes circling around the place that it can actually be very easy to lose where you actually are on screen sometimes. And the other one is as a result of the fact that your levels are actually permanent. So if you capture a creature and you level it up to max by killing things, even if you die, the next time you find that creature again, even if it's not one of your pets, the levels are persistent. It will stay at level 3, so you no longer have to kill things to level it up anymore. This means that once you reach level 3, which doesn't take very long because, that's only 2 extra levels, there isn't really much of a point to the combat. It kind of feels like there should be more stuff, more rewards, or more reasons to actually fight the creatures in the levels, because it's actually a better idea most of the time once you have a level 3 creature to just ignore everything and push your way through as fast as possible, because there are areas like these big square arenas that you have to fight in, so you're going to be getting health drops and stamina drops and the chance to increase your stamina by hitting with your active abilities and stuff in all of these areas, which means you can safely ignore a lot of the other enemies, any of the enemies that are in the non-arena fights. Just in the exploration in general, you don't really need to fight most of the time. They will occasionally drop health and occasionally drop stamina, but very rarely, and honestly, you save more health and stamina by just not fighting them than they would ever drop for you, and just saving all those resources for these big arena fights instead. So I think it might be kind of cool to have some sort of other reason to fight, some sort of reason to not just ignore the enemies once you're at level 3 in the actual exploration part of the game, something that's a little bit more of a reward for stopping and clearing all the enemies on screen than just saving time. And that is Patch Quest. It is a fun, lighthearted, Metroidvania-influenced rogue-lite romp that is all about capturing creatures and decorating a base to make said creatures happy, which is always a fun thing to do. And if you are a sort of creature collector game enjoyer, then this is definitely for you, because it does it pretty well, and the fact that you can capture pretty much every creature in the game, even the bosses, is a really nice touch. So look for this on the 7th, like I mentioned, and the link will be in the description below this video if you want to wishlist it in advance. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.